The wait is finally over. Britney Spears' new memoir is out today. The Woman in Me is already a bestseller. No surprise there. The book details Spears' complicated childhood, rise to fame, an abortion she had while dating Justin Timberlake, and her time in a conservatorship. Spears describes that period of her life as, quote, the worst thing that could possibly ever happen to my music, my career, and my sanity. The Woman in Me is published by Simon & Schuster, which, like CBS, is part of the Paramount global family. People editor-in-chief Wendy Naugle joins us right now. How you doing?
Good, thank you.
So there have been a ton of headlines already about this book in the lead-up to the release of this book. What has Britney's response been to everything?
I think she's been very proud that it's instantly shot up to #1, Amazon bestseller. You know,
Shot up to #1, Wendy, before it came out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, everyone is clamoring for this book and excited to read it and hear from her. And I think she really views this book as a clean slate. You know, it was a book she didn't know needed to be written. And now that it's out, she feels like she has a clean slate to move forward.
She also said she didn't want to offend anybody by rehashing some of the things that's gone on because there have been a couple of jaw-dropping revelations. But you think it's still relevant for her to talk about her past experiences?
I do.
Moving forward?
I do. I think as a culture, a lot of times we have these moments of nostalgia where we look back at things in our past. And, you know, we all cheered for her and watched her music and sang and danced along to her music. But we also watched how she was treated. You know, mothers often talked about how she was a horrible influence because of the way she danced or her crop tops. Or there was even a First Lady of Maryland who said, if I had a gun, I'd like to shoot Britney Spears. She later apologized for that, but that's just one small example of how she was treated over time. And I think as we go back and analyze that, hopefully with more wisdom and more perspective, we learn what we could have done better and how we can do better in the future.
Yeah, the First Lady of Maryland back in the day, not the current First Lady of Maryland.
Back in the day, yes.
Yeah.
She was denied her voice for so long, not her singing voice, but to speak for herself. So many people spoke for her. Is she... you know, sometimes a book will come out and people will interpret it, and I mean, does she feel like this is consistent with her voice, the things she wanted to say?
Good question.
I think so. I think the book really is her speaking. I mean, you can hear her voice as you read it. I mean, it's a very fast read. It's a page turner. It's gripping. And it is really fascinating to hear her side of the events that we all kind of watched in the headlines back in the day.
And one of those headlines was what some people called a meltdown in 2007. You know, it's funny because celebrities have meltdowns all the time. But when Britney had this so-called meltdown, the entire world was talking about it. She shaved her head, and it was on headline after headline.
Well, because we saw it, too.
We
That's
saw
the
it,
other thing,
and we couldn't stop talking about it. And she called this a moment after attacking someone with a camera reporting on it, a desperate move by a desperate person. How does she explain that time in her life?
That was a really difficult time in her life. You know, she was dealing with postpartum depression and some other losses. And she says that was a moment where she was acting out. And it was, you know, with her hair specifically, she knew how that was a symbol of her sexuality and her femininity. And it was a way for her to say, no, you don't get to control this. I'm done with this. Yeah. F you. This is how I am going to show that I have control.
Yeah, she also talks about the Free Britney campaign, that when she became aware of that and what that meant to her. How did that affect her? It's very touching in the book.
Yeah, there's a very powerful moment in the book where she was in a mental health facility and one of the nurses pulled her over to her computer and showed her some images of women in Free Britney T-shirts and showing signs of support. And that meant a lot to Britney. I think it really helped her know that when she was feeling so alone, she actually wasn't that alone. There were people out there who were cheering for her and gave her a little motivation to fight.
And in the brief moment we have left, I want to go back to the postpartum depression because it was long and severe. How is that going?
You know, she writes about that very honestly, and also she writes about her perinatal depression, which is depression during pregnancy. And I think this is an example of something that she was talking about and enduring when a lot of people in the culture weren't talking about it at that time. And it's, you know, imagine going through that in addition to the microscope that she was under. And that can be a powerful message to anyone suffering that they can get help and get through it, too.
Well, she has been through a lot, that's for sure, and we're hoping the best for her. Wendy Naugle, thank you so much for joining us.